If you saw this painting from afar, you could be forgiven for thinking it was the work of Sir Peter Lely, the greatest painter of the Restoration age. But it is actually by his friend and contemporary, Mary Beale, and it was painted in 1677. Now, this is a really interesting picture for many different reasons, but before we go into that, let me just tell you a bit about the sitter. Her name was Anne Sotheby, and she came from a very old English family. They lived around the Hatton Garden area of London, and so would have been familiar with the Beales. Mary's husband Charles, for example, his family lived in that part of town, so that's perhaps where the introduction came from. She was also the granddaughter of a very wealthy London merchant called Sir Nicholas Crisp, and so they had a lot of family wealth. This portrait shows Anne when she was aged around 20 years, some 3 years after she married James Sotheby, and about a year following the birth of her daughter Anne. But what's so interesting about this picture is that it's recorded in not just one but 2 records from that period. Anne's husband, James Sotheby, was a diligent record keeper, and he kept a list of all the works he commissioned from contemporary artists. The painting is recorded in James Sotheby's notebook as, by Mrs. Beale, the picture of my wife in her 20th year, a half-length, with the price £14 next to it. And we know that at this time, Mary Beale charged £10 for a portrait of this size, probably with an additional £1 because she used ultramarine to paint the blue drapery, which came at an extra cost. The additional £3 was, we presume, for the price of the frame. So that's very, very interesting to have that, but not only that, we also have a record of it in the notebooks kept by Mary Beale's husband, Charles Beale. The present work is referred to in an appendix in Charles's notebook, where it states that Mary paid her son Charles £1 for Mrs. Sotheby's half-length. It was therefore a collaboration, really, between mother and son. We know Charles helped Mary paint the drapery in her portraits and also the decorative stone cartouches you see around her bust-length portraits. So for all these reasons discussed, this for us is a really interesting and exciting picture. And in fact, it's actually due to go off to the Tate imminently for their forthcoming show on British women artists.